All right, welcome. 3 o'clock hour. My name is Stacy Rowland. As of April, I'm the Assistant Director of Collection and Technology Services at the UNC Law Library, Bernard Everett Law Library. What I was going to talk about today was styles and how they can be useful for your students, attorneys, even reference librarians. I think we've all heard at this point, 31, I think we're up to actually 32, I'm not sure the blog post has been updated, 32 states have adopted an ethical duty of technology competence. What does that actually mean? How can we actually use it? There's the actual ABA language. We've all heard of this, right? Show of hands. So that's where this is coming from. The reason I'm starting out this way, it dovetails very nicely with what I approach styles this way because it is an access to justice issue. You can absolutely do more with what I'm going to talk about with hot docs, with the draft analyzer from Bloomberg. But the issues with those is, one, you might not understand how styles actually work. Those tools specifically utilize styles at a basic level. It's kind of like going in using Dreamweaver without exactly knowing how HTML works. Great, WYSIWYG, most of the time, you'll be okay. But when you get that percent that it's not working, it's broken, you don't know that basic HTML, you're out of luck. You're going to probably have to pay someone. I'm that person that knows how to fix those problems that crop up in the WYSIWYG. That's what I'm going to talk about with word styles. It's that basic level. Also accessible to anybody. I mean, most of us have Word that comes with our machines. Whatever hardware we purchase, it tends to. Office 365 is on a lot of things. These styles can even be done in OpenOffice. A bit different, doing slightly different. And anybody can do this. Ways this has already been used. Again, with the keynote speaker this morning, somebody talked about how do lawyers make money off of this. We have a really good example of that. Go out in Arizona started putting up all of their documents online for free. No problem just putting them up there. There's no downloads. I mean, there's no paywalls, anything like that. The only thing you have to do is agree to the terms. They're Word documents. What they found out from setting up these documents and basically having the process automated, they generated more traffic, more questions, more business, because pro se's would only get to a certain level, and then they needed additional. So even putting their materials out there for free, they were able to generate more revenue. So it is possible, and that's what we're going to talk about, is those building blocks. One, how we start incorporating a duty of technology into our classes, actually giving students an example of what they can do with that. A lot of times with CALI, they may charge a flat rate. $5,000 for an estate if it's very complicated. A certain set fee for a business incorporation. But if you've got these materials automated and you can turn it over quickly, you're not spending that excess time. That can be a time saver, and that can actually. Other examples. At SEAL, Eva Ross down at South Carolina did a fantastic talk on what was going on with storms in South Carolina. This is South Carolina courts. And they've actually gone through and set up both PDF and Word versions of a lot of their forms. But thinking back to this morning, what's wrong with this? You're pro se, you have no legal background. What does all this mean?
Nothing.
Yeah, I mean, it's this right here, it's not legal. I don't even know what that is. I'm assuming it's the form number. But it doesn't help me. I'm trying to modify child support. I'm trying to start a process. I don't know what those mean, and I don't know which forms I need. What South Carolina did, they used those same links actually created an index, you would know what forms you would need in that particular context. You're looking for divorce. Well, those are listed together. They did not change the forms. All they did was create an index so that you would have some accessibility to those forms and what they mean in the context of the court. Again, the court system got close. They actually used word styles. If I pull it up, we're going to talk about that .dot extension there in just a little bit. Get to the forms. We've got an index now, University of South Carolina, that tells us what the context of these are. Gives us a little bit more information. They're cross-referenced with the form numbers, again, making it more accessible. What I'm going to talk about today, how we actually get there. All right, so I got a couple examples here. We've got DOCX, we're all used to that. I've got .tot.s. That stands for attempt. You're going to automate these files. You don't want someone going back behind you and saving over, right? Have you ever been in the position ever? Opening a file, you get a whole lot of work done. Save the file. You want to share the file with somebody else, it's on the network drive. They open it up, they make changes, they hit save. What's wrong?
The file is now.
It's gone, right? Your original work product has now been saved over. Better hope that there's snapshots on the network. If not, you can't actually make the machine do the work. You don't make those types of human mistakes. One way of doing that is setting up the document template. Go back to the South Carolina website, that's exactly what they did. So if you bounce over it, you'll see it's got the document number and then the template extension after it. What that does, when you open it, it's going to automatically force you to a brand new document. Up there at the top, you'll actually see document pop. Completely unsaved. Now, all this work that we're going to talk about when it comes to styles has been preserved. You're not going to lose that. It'll automatically force whoever's using it afterwards. That's step one. I'm very glad to see that it's starting to implement. Talk about navigation. What are some word, navigation, and formatting? There's got to be something. Any volunteer?
Well, not necessarily specific, but just the issue of when you get a document and several people have worked on it and they're copying and pasting and the formatting gets all wonky and crazy and the numbering and just index, everything just goes.
Yeah, so that's one big problem. We'll talk about that. What else?
Doc to docx and Mac to Windows. Not so much a problem anymore, but it was for a long time. Or WordPerfect to Doc. Still have some people using WordPerfect.
So yeah, even different versions of it. I would kind of cringe if I had to go from Office 2010 to Office 16. I've got complex format. That's going to scare me. What about resumes? Had a problem with resumes.
Trouble doing the line.
Getting it set up and changing it. I mean, even the templates that come with Word, they can have weird styling in them, things like that. We can help. First off, close that real quick. Navigation. One of the big problems that we have with Word, like typewriter, not. If you think about the cost, if you go and buy a retail copy of Office, it's about $400. The reason they're charging you for that, actually a lot of automation that's implicit in it. The problem is, unless somebody actually shows us that, or shows us where to go, or what to click on, a lot of us miss that. It doesn't make it easy. It's not intuitive. I think with our students, I think we overestimate exactly how much they know as well. Unless somebody has shown them how to use these programs properly, gone into in depth, they are not the digital native. Dunning-Kruger is alive and well. One of the ways that I teach law technology practices in one of the pro-service tests. What it is, it's a service. They walk them through tasks of how to do stuff with Excel, with Word, with Adobe Acrobat. And it gives them a good idea of what they don't know. I think it's eye-opening for us as well. I think as educators that we overestimate how much they do. It's a good way to show them, look, there is a learning curve here. You can automate a lot of the practices that will make your life. So resumes are ones that I like to start with. First off, navigation panel. Who's used that before? Who knew it was actually there? I had to go over to view and click on navigation panel. I didn't have to actually set up any of the text on this side. Why is it useful to me? All I had to do when I was setting up my resume, go through all the If you notice, when I click on parts of it, it'll highlight. So I can actually travel through fairly quickly. Go down to teaching experience. Enough to go there. The other strong point of styling your documents and setting up document structure is ease of editing. I like to show these to my students. They're out and constructing their own resumes. They're going to have to be flexible. One hint that I always give them, go and look wherever you're going to apply. A lot of times the attorneys that are there, they will have their resumes posted. It doesn't hurt to model your resume out there. As human beings, we like familiar. We like what we're already expecting. That little bit of psychological edge can get your resume better. If you've got styling in your document, it makes it really easy. Let's say, for instance, that I wanted my law clerk experience up front. It may not be chronological, but I want it up top. Once I've got the styling in here, I can just pick that up, drag it. Everything auto reformats. Resumes, there aren't footnotes and things like that, but if there are, they would go right with it and they would auto. I need to adjust my resume quickly and efficiently. It's done for me. Make a big difference, makes your students' lives much easier. This is an excellent way of reaching out and using this technology. Talk to career services. I'm sure that they would find this information. It's a great way for the library to collaborate with other parts of the CDO would do. Yeah, because it's formatted all the way down. Or I can change even the order that all the information is in. Just after that, for it, auto format. All the tabs are the same, nothing has moved. Oh, make those simple edits, will make your students' lives much easier. Like I said, it doesn't hurt to impress the attorneys that work there. Blue at the top, that's UNC blue. Use that color. Got it off the imaging page. Doesn't matter. And it's something that I won't have to think about ever again. I've got that color, I've got that set up as a style. I can go back and use that again fairly easily. All right, so that's resumes. How else can you use them? Of course, the big one, meetings, contracts, anything like that. Go ahead and leave my navigation panel up. One thing before we get into this is where I've gotten some pushback in class. Somebody already mentioned that sometimes there's differences between Mac and Word, Mac on Word and Mac or Word on Windows. There are features missing for Office on Mac. Nothing I can do about that. Send ugly emails to Microsoft. Do it on purpose. They want you to buy the Windows environment, other license. There are some differences. I actually had, for this semester, my students submit a brief as their final. written up a fairly elaborate service of process document. They had this nice scenario. They did have to construct a table of authorities and style the brief using the North Carolina Rules of Appellate Procedure. One thing that they kind of freaked out about is, one, they did not know how to do the table of authorities. They had all been taught this at one point in first year class. For advanced legal research, I teach 2 and 3 Ls. I know that they've been exposed to it. All forgotten it. Know how to do it, and they're all freaking out. On top of that, is I warned them, because what they're teaching had this apples. So there's going to be differences. But there's a couple ways around that. One, UNC does have a virtualized session. It's 2013, but it's close enough.
Launch your Citrix. It's trying to launch your Citrix session.
Yeah,
It's okay.
It's shut down, but it's virtualized. Much better in class because I didn't know. But that was one way around the Mac issues. The only difference that it's really got, but it still throws people off, it does not have the styles and stuff. I'll talk about that in just a minute. So that is a screenshot of what this looks like on a Mac. Now I have to admit, there was some angst on my part. I decided to do this live in class. It was kind of an incentive for them to have all their research done. I said, show up to class, do the table of authorities live. Set myself up for this. It actually worked out great. I mean, it was close enough on the Mac that the students were out. We could look at it. We also got a few people wanted to use the virtualized one through UNC. That worked fine. How did we actually get there? How was this project actually born? The rules, which is what court called it, not me, they actually changed the rules of appellate procedure in North Carolina in early 2017. A lot of news for attorneys, because the rules can change. So most of them are just basic rules, no surprise there. Then you do get into very granular formatting of the document. And it's all laid out right here. Probably the biggest one is we went from Courier to Century. Eyes. A lot to remember. Who wants to commit that to memory? Don't. And there's no reason to. Word can do this for us. That's where style is. That's a lot of effort to actually sit down and memorize. Let the computer do the work for you. Got it all laid out. If something is repetitive, if it's predictable, usually if it's annoying, it can be automated. The rules have all 3 of those characteristics. So, setting that up. This is how my versions of Word usually look. I'm going to show you how we got there. All right, we've talked about navigation. The style inspector, which is what Word is missing on Macs, and then the actual styles themselves. So this is what it usually looks like for most folks. And this goes back to my point that unless you've been trained and know exactly what to look at, it's difficult to find. Styles actually takes up a good chunk of the usability interface on Word. But until today, who's actually clicked on that? So some, that's good. But if you don't know to click on it and you don't know to click on that little caret down there at the bottom, there's no one to tell you that. There's no easy help button that says, hey, Word just got all this neat stuff in it. Click on this to use it. Natively and without you doing anything, there's about 200 styles in every single blank Word document. Just pulling up a blank one is already utilizing styles. That's where you made the great point that when a lot of people work on it, they change it, the font's all different. What it's doing is we're fighting against the styles that are already in the document. We need to not fight it. Work with it instead. And we can do that. So first thing we do, click on the little caret. It's not easy to see, it's right there, but that gets us into the interface. You can actually pick this up, you can move it around, it doesn't have to stay there. You've got a nice dual monitor setup, triple if you're really going for it. Makes it a little easier. So I usually just put mine over there to the side. Next thing I'll usually open up is the actual style inspector. I want to see quickly when I click on something what it is, what it's based on, where it's coming from. It's not unlike using cascading style sheets for web programming. They cascade down on top of each other. So most of these styles actually come from the normal document template. That's what all blank documents are based on. That's what Word comes with. When we start having problems, when all the fonts are going crazy, we don't know why, it's because we're not using styles correctly. We're working against the machine. I usually use the analogy of wallpaper. Say you buy a house. Walk in, house is great, good bones, but the wallpaper is atrocious. One of the worst things you can do is go and paint over the wallpaper, right? That is not how you fix that. You've just made the problem that much worse. What do you do with it?
Take out the wallpaper.
Rip it down, right? Strip it out of there. If you're having problems with Word, that's where you start. You strip the styling out. If it's doing crazy things, if the font is changing for no good reason, you can go in and wipe out the styles very first thing. If I come here, just clicking in here, I know it's body text. I can see right there how it's styled, what it's pulling, and why it's doing what it's doing. If we want to go back to, somebody mentioned WordPerfect days, you actually can have reveal codes. Granted, it's not quite as good as the old WordPerfect days, but it'll do with that combination. So I've got that, I've got the type of styling it is, and if I just mouse over it, I've got the specifics of what's going on with it. If I don't want that anymore, if it is crazy and I can't figure out what it's doing, I can either delete the style or I can clear the formatting. That's how you fix crazy Word documents. If all else fails, go in there and rip it out. Start over fresh. So how do we get from here to what the court is mandating that we do for various documents, for various filings? All right, so I've got some very specific points in here. Well, sort of specific. Anywhere from 12 point to 14 points as far as the size goes. So right there. And then I've got a couple of different fonts to choose from. At least it's not Courier anymore. All right. So when you are going to change stuff, actually let me close this one. Go back to my other one. Usually when you're going to change the fonts or the size, what do?
Select the text and then change.
Drag, right? Drag the whole thing. With styles, you don't have to drag. You will not see. I'm up here using my touchpad. I didn't even bother to bring a mouse with me. So I don't need to. I don't need that kind of precision. So, if I do want to change the body text and pretty much everything, I want to get Century all the way through. That's what's being called for in the rules. I can actually come over here and I can modify. It's telling me that it's based on the normal template right there. So all of these, again, it's like cascading style sheets. You set up rules, and until those rules change, they will stay they will be consistent from each level as it goes down. So really, because I know I want Century on everything, I actually can change normal. I can actually go in here, I can change body text if I want to, but it's only going to hit the styles that are already labeled as body text. So what other styles do I have in here? Tells me over here, what's listed?
Headings.
So I've got different types of headings, right? Headings 1, heading 2. Again, if I do that, that's how I get my navigation pane. Makes it easy, can swap stuff around. I've got table of authorities, I've got question and answers. So I can see all of them. Is that all of them? No. So we can actually see, we can manage the styles. This is what's going on. This is how it's working. So body text, I can change across the board. And I can actually see all of them as well. If I come over to options, right now, it's just listed as recommended. And again, that's just the default of Word. I can either choose the ones that are in use in the current document, or if I want to see everything, remember I said every blank document has about 200 styles? Right there is how you find all of them. So all styles, I can bring them up in whatever order I want. A lot of times I know the names, that's my own personal preference, but you can do as recommended, you can do it based on font, you can do it based on the type. A lot of times if I want to see all of them, I'll just leave it as alphabetical. And because I teach this a lot, I've taught it at the Festival of Learning, which is the big North Carolina CLE. I tend to only do it in that document, but if this is something you want to set up across the board, you can change it to all new documents based on that type. For right now, I'm going to leave it on that one. Okay, so going back, I can see all the different types. And I know I've got normal in there as well. Actually, let me, pro tip, if you ever mess up, undo is your friend, which I just did. But I want to change everything to Century, right? All in one go. I don't want to change the body text and then change the headings and do all that. There's too much room for mistakes. But I can go and change the base template that they're all pulling from. So in this case, I know it's normal. It told me that when I did the style inspector. I can come over to modify. So what's our default font? Tahoma. I mean, we all come from different states. Is that the default for any document that you know of in your jurisdiction? For legal materials? No, me neither. It's usually Century, Courier, something like that. So North Carolina rules explicitly call for Century. Now, do I want to change the size here?
12 and 14, right?
So is that going to be true of headings as well? And that's the thing. We might have to be a little careful. We know for a fact that the font is going to change. So I'm going to go ahead and change that. This will change everything. Again, I don't have anything selected. Again, I don't want it changing everything. If you hit new document types based on the template, everything you have will then be Century. If your jurisdiction, if that's fine, go for it. But if you want different things, let's say if you're working on contracts as opposed to an appellate brief, you might not want everything to change. So for right now, I'm just going to keep it in this document. Now, did you see it flip when I accepted that? Going back through the entire document, no matter where I click, is going to have Century as the base font. If I scroll down, I'm in my caption. We'll talk about why that just auto-selected in a little bit. Go back to the actual text. body text based on normal, which we just changed, so we know that's also century as well. So again, didn't have to select, and now anytime I open this document, it'll stay with century. It doesn't matter what else I add to it. That base font, we have ripped the wallpaper down. Century is all that's left on that template. I don't have to worry about it just randomly going back to Tahoma, which I know is very annoying for a lot of people. That's how you get around that and change that. So let's do the font now. Now, until I get into the captions of the documents, right now it looks like I'm just going to change the body text to between 12 and 14. So easy enough to get there. I can just click here. I know because of the style inspector that I'm using the body text. I can come over, I can modify the style right here. It said between 12 and 14, so I'm just going to change it there. I'm going to hit OK. Again, I have not selected anything. Auto reformats everything. And now this document will stay there. Anytime I select something as body text, it will stay put. I have now ripped down the wallpaper and put everything back the way it should. Does that make sense? Okay, so now we've got that. So we've gone over how to navigate, setting up your headers, and again, for navigation, that's all I did. I designated these top level headers, and that auto-created all the navigation. Again, if I want to switch these out, let's say for whatever reason a court rule changed everything, if I'm following the elements laid out and I want to make them match, I can click, change all those, they automatically update. If there's footers, if there's footnotes, if there's endnotes, all of that will automatically change with it. So you're not going in and fighting the text. All right. I'm going to close some of these. I'm going to close my style inspector. I'm going to close the style links just for a little bit, so I've got some more real estate. Table of authorities. All right, when I come over and click on it, just one simple click, I didn't double click or anything like that, it auto highlights all the text. What does that tell me? Got an answer? What's it do?
When you click them and then it automatically highlighted everything, now anything that you do will happen.
That's true, but it also tells me that that's auto-generated text. I did not type that out. What are these little dot things here called?
Dot leaders.
Dot leaders. Most of my students don't know that. And I always relate it back to research. If you don't know what the terms of art is, if you don't know what something's called, it makes it really hard to research. If I know those are called dot leaders, there's dozens of videos on YouTube, on Lynda, where I can go in and figure out how to make dot leaders. I didn't make any of those. I don't have patience for that. Again, this is why we pay so much for Word. Let it do the hard work for you. I don't want to sit there and do that. So how do we do this? This is part of why we pay so much for Word. All of this is already included in Word. It's already set up for us. So for this table of authorities, I've just got a few cases. I've got rules. Let's assume I also have some state statutes I need to add. So we're going to just go to the text. All right, so let's see, that's page Roman numeral 2, so then we actually get to the brief. Let's say I was going to cite this, it goes back to a state statute. So we'll go to 100, Florida statute 100. Okay, I did not have any statutes at first, and actually, let's go ahead and put id on the second page for it as well. And just to double check my work, that's page 1. So we're going to do an id here as well. All right. And that was on page 2. All we have to do with these is mark them. So once I get it in, it's all bookmarked and blue booked. Come over to references. And then you can mark the citation right up there. When I do that, it's going to automatically pop up. And then I've got my choice of how I want to categorize it. So by default, it has cases, it has statutes, other authorities not exactly helpful, rules, treaties, regulations, and then I've added a couple of my own. If you scroll down a little bit more, you just start seeing these numbers, and you can actually go in and customize those. So by default, it has statutes, but if I'm dealing with statutes and federal law, I might want to break those out. So I chose as my example state statutes, and I might want my table of authorities to reflect that and do different things with them. So I'm going to choose state statutes because this is the first time I'm doing it. It's like Blue Book. It's going to automatically pull in the long citation for me. So I don't have to worry about that. It's going to be categorized as state statute. I've got my actual text up there. The short cite, if I'm doing the statutes and they're not that complicated, I'll just put them in like that. If it starts getting really long and there's subparts and subchapters, I might limit it a little bit, but again, you'll have to kind of make a judgment call on that. For most cases, if they're fairly unique names, just the first part will do. Now, if you're dealing with Smith versus the state, be very, very careful, especially if you decide to cite all of them at once. If you're just talking about Smith as a name, that can cause problems. So again, just exercise caution. I'll show you that in a little bit. But for right now, let's just do state statutes. And all I have to do is hit mark. Okay, so if we take a look at this, I've now got some crazy citation formatting around it. That's just Word doing the hard work for you. If you're old enough to remember WordStar and things like that, you had to actually go in and type all that out at one point. We've gotten better. Let the machine do the hard work for you. So we've got one there, and that was on page 1. Let's go to page 2, and I'm going to grab my id. So I want that showing up as well. Okay, again, I'm going to hit mark citation. I still want it to be a state statute. I want to change my short citation. I don't want it to read as id because I want it to actually be part of and categorized with state statutes. And if you'll notice, because I did that first long official Blue Book citation, it's now pulling it in for me. Okay, so I'm going to mark that. Again, if I look at the text, I can see I've got the crazy formatting around it. That's just Word's way of saying, okay, this has been marked, and now we need to put it in the table of authorities. Okay, so we go back up to table of authorities. Nothing's there. Panic, right? No, we just haven't told it to update yet. All right, so come in. This is where it's a little unintuitive. You would think because I've already got a table of authorities, I don't need to reinsert it again. I actually do because I don't have one dealing with cases, or I don't have one dealing with state statutes. So if I come back to insert table of authorities, again, these should look familiar. This is everything that we've already looked at before and how we classified it. I chose state statutes. I can either keep the original formatting, and if I've already done the blue booking and everything is fine, I'll usually just leave that checked. Or if you've gotten one of these documents that all the formatting is crazy, you want to fix it, tell it, uncheck the original formatting, and then you've actually got different kind of templates. You can go in and change these, you can set up your own template. Simple is fine. Once I hit OK, now I've got my state statutes in there. And because I marked it, it pulled it up on page 1 and page 2. No dot leader tabs. I didn't have to go in and mess with that. So what do you do if something is already there? Let's just put in another case real quick. So let's just say, I think I put a, all right, so let's cite, again, this is the first one, so it's going to be a full blue book citation. Now, why am I not highlighting the entire citation? It's a pin site, right? And it might not need to be that specific within the table of authorities. So that's one thing that does kind of throw my students now and then. So just the citation that you need for the table of authorities. I'm going to mark it. Now this one, again, this is why we pay a lot of money for Word. It's already got cases in there. We have other cases. Again, if you wanted to be fancy, you could split them up into state cases or Supreme Court or by circuit. You can go in and change them here. But if this one's fairly simple, we'll just stay with cases. It's the first one, so it'll automatically put in the long citation for me. I'm going to mark it. And now because it's here, again, it'll auto-select when I click on all of those. Update the table, pulls it right in for me. And again, no messing with dot leader. My students don't even know what that is. They do once they leave class. Again, useful tool. You do have reveal codes here. Makes it easy if I'm just looking at this. Come in and take out that extra return that shouldn't be there. And that's how you automatically set up a table of authorities. Makes it much easier. Students have brought me all sorts of papers that are a mess. I'm able to go back and fix that. So that's been very helpful to them. It's been helpful for attorneys too. I mean, this is definitely something that, unless you're shown, it's just not obvious. And a lot of our students are not being shown this. The other big issue that tends to throw people, page numbers. I'll fully admit, when I was a 1L, had to turn in my appellate brief. I was so happy with it. I printed out the first page that did not have a page number at the bottom, printed out the next 3 that had to be lowercase, Roman numerals, printed those out. Next page, no page number, had to be suppressed, printed that out, printed out the rest with Arabic numbers. Stapled it together, turned it in. Can't do that with electronic filing anymore. So you need to know how to do that. All right, how can we do that? This one tends to confound people. All right, what I will normally do, I won't do page numbers until the very last thing. So I'll put some pages in my document. First thing, once I've got the entire document done, then I'll put my page numbers in. The ones that are close enough to the North Carolina rules, bottom center. We can go in again using styles. We can fix it however we need it. All right, so I got a 9-page document. First page has a 1 on it. When you're dealing with appellate documents, does it need that 1? No, it needs to be suppressed. Also, when you're dealing with the first pages of appellate documents, what do you need? Is it Roman numerals? Is it Arabic? Anybody know? Roman. Okay, so let's put it in Roman first. Go back to page numbers. It's okay. Format page numbers. And we'll go with lowercase Roman, all right? We'll hit OK. And now everything is Roman, but we'll fix that. Okay, so the next big thing, we don't want it showing up on page 1. All you have to do to fix that is click on different from front page. Good luck getting something that clearly states that. So all you have to do, unclick that or click that button. It has now been suppressed on the first page. So if I go down to page 2, I'm sorry, I had to kind of enlarge this so you guys could see it. Page 2, Roman numerals, like it should be. All right, so we've got our table of authorities. We'll pretend like the table of contents is there. So on this page, going back just to the top, I now want to start over. So if I'm actually getting to the legal theories of my brief, that very first page, what's supposed to be there? What's there? Hidden, suppressed, right? Again.
Yeah.
So you've gone from suppressed, lowercase, Roman 2, Roman 3. Now we want to suppress it again, and then it's going to have to switch back to Arabic numerals. All right, so the way you do that, layout, breaks. And again, this is not obvious. Unless somebody shows you, it's really hard to get there. You have to put in next page. So when I do that, if I scroll down, there's my Roman numeral 3. There's nothing. That's good. And I still have Roman numeral 5. That's all right. We're going to go back up here where 4 should be. Oop. Yep, there's 3. So 4 should be there. Because I put in that page break, I need to suppress it. Without me doing anything, it already checked the box for different from the first. So then I want to actually format it. I want to go from Roman to Arabic. And I want to start at 1, right? It's suppressed, but it still needs to be 1. And going forward, there's number 2. All one document, no print cheats of, printing out one and then turning in the other. We go back and look at the beginning. First page is still suppressed. Second page is still lowercase Roman numerals. All together, ready for e-filing. All right, so I've chattered on for about 50 minutes now. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
I had a specific question about formatting the table of authorities.
Okay.
Something that I haven't been able to figure out how to do it, and I tried doing it on Word just now by modifying the normal template, is the headings always are styled in a font that I don't want. So where it says like cases or statutes or whatever, the only way that I can change it is by opening up the table of authorities menu, hitting modify, and then going to table of authorities headings. Is there some other way to do it?
I would do it through a template or using one of the ones, for North Carolina, it's fine to use the simple one. Let me bring mine back up.
Is there a way to save one?
Yes,
Okay, that's great.
you actually can save them.
Because that's a step that I always have to go through, like every time.
Let's see. Let's go to references. Insert table of authorities. Now, like I said, you're using a Mac. It might look slightly different.
Sure.
But you can do it from under formatting,
Uh-huh.
from template, or you can use one of the others. I can also uncheck keep original formatting,
Yeah.
and then it pulls it in.
It pulls it in from the normal template?
However these are set up is where it's pulling from. If you leave keep original formatting, however you marked it, that's the formatting that's going to pull it.
Okay.
So like on my other one I did that case with Mark, I had it italicized. But in the table of contents, well, actually, that's the way it should do, or should be. The rest of them are italicized as well. But if I had not, it would still auto-format it because I told it not to bring in the original formatting. So that's how I would go in and change it. Like I said, the steps to doing that might be slightly different with Word on Mac. Any other questions? All right, so like I said, ways of reaching out. We talked about the CDO example. We've talked about even doctrinal classes. I mean, I could see people who teach contracts doing a quick demo on this and having the students actually automate their documents when they're drafting contracts, getting their hands in it, using it. The problem that I found with my classes, especially my 3Ls, they had not touched this kind of information since their 1L days. They did get it there, but if they didn't use it, they did lose it. So again, reaching out, having those collaboration material or having those collaboration opportunities, that's a good way to reach them, as well as reach that ABA, the new ABA tech requirement. If it's not coming to your state, or if it hasn't come there, I bet it's coming in the future. We're up to 32 at this point.
A question, if I may. How would you save this as a .m, a template? Just save it as that file format?
The macros, well, you can do file, save as, and actually put it in a template. Macros can be problematic. There are places that it's disabled by default because it was so problematic with security. But the .dot is in here. So there's DOTX, and there's one of the older formats, as well as the macro one. So it's file, save as. Once you get everything set up and you don't want things changing, that's how you can change that. You want to know where your styles are actually stored and how you can change that. You can export these. So if you've got a law practice group and you all want them doing the same thing, come into Word. This one's kind of buried. Go to Options. Again, no one shows you. Advanced. And it's under General File Locations. So if you go in, if you've got body text, you want to use it for contracts specifically. You can go in, you can save your style. Just name it body text contracts. Then you can actually say where you'd like these workgroup templates saved. So if you've got a network drive and you want all the students pulling from that one place, this can actually be changed on a per machine basis and force it to actually pull in from that designated file spot. So for mine, I usually put it on default users for documents, and then anybody who's using that machine can then access those templates that I've set up. Any other questions? So we're at the 4 o'clock hour. All right, well, if you think of any more, let me know. Like I said, I work at UNC. I'm easy to get a hold of. Feel free to ask. I appreciate you showing up. Thanks.